I'm Jason Epperson. This is Parkography, and it's time for the latest in national park and public lands news. First up, authorities in Colorado are searching for a subject who stabbed a park ranger at Staunton State Park earlier today. The incident occurred around noon in the 4,000-acre park located just southwest of Denver. The suspect fled on foot after the stabbing, and heavily armed officers were seen sweeping the area. The injured ranger was transported to a hospital, but officials have not released the name or current condition of the ranger. As of now, the motive behind the attack remains unclear. Staunton State Park has been closed to the public while law enforcement continues their search. Visitors who were inside the park at the time were safely evacuated. Colorado Parks and Wildlife and the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office are leading the investigation, and this is obviously a fast-evolving situation, so things may have changed by the time you hear this info. Hundreds of people may have been exposed to rabies this summer after staying in bat-infested cabins at Jackson Lake Lodge in Grand Teton National Park. Health officials say up to 500 visitors from 38 states and 7 countries may have unknowingly come in contact with bats carrying rabies, some while they were sleeping. And if you've never heard this before, here's a frightening truth. A bat bite or scratch can go completely unnoticed while you sleep, but it can still transmit rabies. In general, I think bats are pretty cool and misunderstood, but I don't love that they can bite you in your sleep. Rabies is almost always fatal once symptoms show, but early treatment, a 5-shot regimen over 2 weeks, is nearly 100% effective. Officials discovered the problem in 8 cabins back on July 27th, prompting an alert to everyone who had stayed in cabins numbered 516 through 530. The lodge closed these cabins and has since installed devices to keep bats from re-entering. The animals have taken up residence in the attic and occasionally swooped into rooms. A few were found dead and did test negative for rabies, but experts warn that's just a small sample. Bats often travel in colonies of 30 to 100. No plans to exterminate the bats. This is a national park after all. But if you stayed in one of those cabins this year and haven't been contacted, reach out to your doctor or local health department immediately, especially if you saw a bat in your room. And at Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area on the Pennsylvania-New Jersey border, officials say a raccoon tested positive for rabies last week after acting erratically near the Smithfield Beach commercial launch. Park visitors are now being urged to report any contact with wild animals immediately and seek medical attention if they came in contact with an animal. The park is working with the National Park Service's Office of Health and Safety to monitor the situation and test sick or dead animals. Meanwhile, the advice is simple: keep your distance from wildlife and keep your pets leashed and up to date on their rabies vaccinations. Throughout June and July, park managers at Isle Royale National Park became concerned with the activities of at least 2 wolves known to have obtained human food at campgrounds on multiple occasions. The wolves were repeatedly sighted in campgrounds and developed areas exhibiting signs of habituation and a reliance on human food sources. For example, wolves were seen dragging away food storage bags and backpacks at numerous campsites. Despite the implementation of food storage regulations and other efforts, the wolves continued to display escalating boldness around visitors, campsites, and staff housing areas. Now, Isle Royale has resorted to killing one of the problem wolves due to the escalating number of concerning incidents reported by park visitors. A release said, quote, "After extensive monitoring and attempts at deterrence and in consultation with state, federal, and tribal agencies, the difficult decision to lethally remove this wolf was made. Park personnel will continue to track wolf-human interactions and remove additional wolves only if necessary." Isle Royale Superintendent Denise Swank noted, "Our priority remains the safety of park visitors and staff and the protection of wildlife in their natural state, including our objective to maintain a wild wolf population. While lethal removal is deeply unfortunate, it became necessary due to a growing public safety risk. All who appreciate and enjoy Isle Royale National Park need to understand the importance of adherence and vigilance to food storage regulations and our collective role in minimizing negative human-wildlife interactions." More in a moment, but first, this episode is sponsored by Slinky Stove. Slinky Stove is the patented collapsible fire pit that stays intact when packed. It's perfect for RVs and car camping or in your own backyard. It sets up in seconds, providing you with smokeless airflow rings and a clean burning fire. No more dancing around campfire smoke. Inexpensive and packed with extras, the Slinky stove offers a 3-level cooking system that gives you flexibility, whether it's morning coffee or evening campfire chili, and with contained ash, cleanup's quick, just the way it should be on public lands. Order yours now at slinkystove.com or click the link in the description. The National Park Service has announced that it will restore and reinstall the bronze statue of Albert Pike, which was toppled and vandalized during protests in June of 2020. The restoration aligns with executive orders to beautify the nation's capital and reinstate pre-existing statues. Originally authorized by Congress in 1898 and dedicated in 1901, the statue honors Pike's leadership in Freemasonry. Pike was a Confederate general with alleged ties to the KKK. He was the only former Confederate military officer with an outdoor statue in Washington, D.C. In 1992, the D.C. Council petitioned the federal government to remove it, but it remained up until June 19, 2020, when protesters in the wake of George Floyd's death tore down the statue and set it ablaze. The statue has been in secure storage since its removal and is currently undergoing restoration by the National Park Service's Historic Preservation Training Center. A mountain in Grand Teton National Park is on track for a name change after historians uncovered allegations about the man it was named for, Samuel Woodring, the park's first superintendent. Mount Woodring, an 11,559-foot peak above Lee Lake, was named in 1963 to honor Woodring's service from 1929 to 1934 as the park superintendent. But nearly a century later, court records and archive documents reveal Woodring was charged in 1934 with assault with the intent to commit rape of an 11-year-old girl, allegations that were never fully brought to light until recently. The charges were ultimately dropped the following year after the victim's family chose not to pursue the case further, citing the trauma their daughter would face in testifying. But historians say there's enough evidence to confirm that egregious misdeeds occurred, including letters and reports from former park officials outlining sexual abuse allegations. According to SF Gate, retired National Park Service historian Bruce Noble, along with other researchers, presented these findings to the Wyoming Board on Geographic Names, which voted in April of 2024 to recommend removing Woodring's name. The U.S. Board on Geographic Names, which has final authority, is currently considering 2 replacement names, Raven Peak and Equality Peak. Raven Peak, proposed by Noble, is meant to be a safe, apolitical alternative. Equality Peak, proposed by Utah resident Jim Greer, would honor Wyoming's history as the first state to grant women the right to vote, a nod to the state's nickname, the Equality State. While Teton County commissioners have endorsed the name Raven Peak, the Wyoming Board narrowly voted 4-3 in favor of Equality Peak. A final decision from the federal naming board is expected at their next meeting on September 11th, pending feedback from the National Park Service. Several national park sites along the East Coast are preparing for the arrival of Hurricane Erin. Cape Hatteras National Seashore in North Carolina is shutting down nearly everything as the storm approaches. Campgrounds at Cape Point, Frisco, and Ocracoke are closing, as are visitor facilities like the Museum of the Sea and Discovery Center. Off-road vehicle beach access ramps are also being shut down. Officials are warning of 15 to 20-foot waves, severe flooding, significant beach erosion, and the likely destruction of protective dune structures. If you're thinking of hitting the beach, don't. Meanwhile, just south at Cape Lookout National Seashore, closures began today, Tuesday the 19th, with the Light Station Visitor Center and Keeper's Quarters Museum expected to stay shut through at least Friday. Ferry service from Harkers Island and Beaufort has been suspended, and all Great Island cabin reservations have been canceled until further notice. And at Assateague Island, oversand vehicle areas are now closed due to the potential for flooding and beach erosion, and all ocean beaches are closed to in-water activity because of the potential for extreme rip current conditions. Portions of parking lots are shutting down as well, with full closures expected. Park officials are urging everyone with plans in any of these areas along the eastern seaboard to stay tuned to the park websites and social media for real-time updates. On Monday, park staff reopened the south rim of Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park to the public. Visitors are now able to drive the South Rim Road to the visitor center, access certain overlooks, and visit the park store. The park says visitors can see for themselves the forces of nature and the mosaic of burned and unburned vegetation. The hours of operation on the South Rim will be 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. The entrance gate will lock at 6 p.m. The Red Rock Canyon Wilderness Route will also open for reservation holders. Still closed are the East Portal Campground and the East Portal Road. The South Rim Drive beyond the Visitor Center to all traffic, including pedestrians and bicycles. The South Rim Campground, all trails and wilderness routes accessed from the South Rim and East Portal, and all burned areas in Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park. The South Rim Drive will open in stages as park employees complete repairs, and closures will be rescinded as developed areas are determined safe. Park operations have returned to normal on the North Rim. The ranger station is open when staff are available. The campground trails and overlooks remain open and accessible, and all North Rim wilderness routes are open. And at the Grand Canyon, the Dragon Bravo fire that destroyed the Grand Canyon Lodge and many other structures on the North Rim still burns. It's now 62% contained. The North Rim of the Grand Canyon will remain closed for the rest of the 2025 season, and State Route 67 remains closed to ensure the safety of crews and the public. A park ranger at Yosemite National Park has been fired after helping to display a giant transgender pride flag on the face of El Capitan earlier this year. According to NBC News, S.J. Joslin, who is trans and non-binary, had worked as both a park ranger and wildlife biologist in the park since 2021. They were terminated last week for failing to, quote, demonstrate acceptable conduct, specifically participating in what was deemed a flag demonstration back in May. The massive flag was part of a symbolic display organized by LGBTQ plus climbers in response of recent anti-trans policies from the Trump administration, including removing the letter T for trans from many National Park Service websites. Joslin says the effort was a peaceful expression and took place outside of work hours. The flag was up for about 2 hours before climbers were told to remove it. A Yosemite spokesperson says the National Park Service is pursuing administrative action against several employees and possible criminal charges for park visitors who participated, citing a lack of demonstration permits and potential violations of federal regulations. Joslin, however, argues that similar flag displays, including an upside-down U.S. flag flown by NPS staff in protest of staffing cuts and a Stop the Genocide banner raised in 2024, have happened before without punishment. A policy explicitly banning large flags in wilderness areas was added to Yosemite's rules the day after the trans pride flag display. Joslin says they plan to fight the termination. 2 other NPS employees are also reportedly under investigation for helping with the display. That's it for this week's National Park and Public Lands News. Thanks so much for being here. If you got something out of this episode, I hope you'll subscribe, and we'll see you next time.